learning a little more about this.
My single destination also here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call the June 12th Select Board meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. There are no changes to the agenda. Announcements?
This meeting is being video and audio recorded. There's no Select Board meeting next week, Wednesday, June 19th, in observance of Juneteenth. And we have a couple of links on the agenda that we hope people will check out. And the first one relates to the proposed North Atlantic right whale vessel restrictions. And this is, as we've been discussing, would have a very, very devastating impact on the island. So we've been doing a lot of public outreach on it. I know a lot of people have reached out to hopefully the town's congressional and legislative delegation, and groups hopefully can request consultations, and there's links that are out for that. And the chair attended one today with the Steamship Authority. Do you want to say how it went?
Really, it was just our first opportunity. These are not dialogues. They are us talking at and trying to present the case for why this would be economically, socially devastating for Nantucket. And I think the more they hear from everyone what it would mean not to have fast ferry service half of the year and to have the steamship have an extra half hour on every trip, which would result in about a third reduction in the number of trips. I mean, just imagine all the ways we use our ferry system to travel ourselves, to get stuff here and there. And today, my remarks focused to some extent on youth sports teams, medical, access to medical care. I mean, really, the community members probably have more ideas than we have in terms of what the impact would be to you personally. So I really encourage everyone to talk about what it would mean to you not to have fast ferry service for half the year.
Something that our contact at Congressman Keating's office has continually reminded us is that this isn't about Nantucket not wanting the rule to pass. It's about Nantucket getting exempted from the rule. Most people, most likely, are very much in favor of doing whatever measures are reasonable to assist the right whale population. But the fact is that there are no documented sightings of right whales between here and Hyannis on our route. So we would need ask to be exempted.
And the interesting figure that Bob Davis from the steamship quoted is that the steamship itself has had over 500,000 trips in the last 25 years. And if you add other services as well, ferry services, other commercial ventures that cross the Sound, it's over 1 million trips back and forth across Nantucket Sound with 0 sightings of the North Atlantic right whale. There are other areas where there actually were sightings, like Buzzards Bay, that have been exempted. So the logic of this doesn't make sense. So really volume of feedback from the community and how substantial it will be to us as individuals and as a community at large is really important right now.
Thank you so much. The next item is the 2024 Annual Town Meeting Survey. We have a survey out online. The link is shown on the agenda. It's open through June 20th, and we would really like to hear from the public.
Okay, Select Board announcements and comments. I know Tom had something you wanted to say.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just want to say some congratulations to the girls lacrosse team for doing so well, and continued success to the boys lacrosse. They're doing an epic job. We're rooting for them.
Any other Select Board comments or announcements? Matt, Tom? Dawn, anything? Nope. Okay. Okay, we don't have any follow-up comments from prior select board meetings this evening. Now is the time for public comment. These are comments for items not on tonight's agenda. And as a reminder, we have a 3-minute limit for public comment. I see Megan's here, so.
Hi there, Megan Perry for the record. I just wanted to share a decision that came out of the Superior Court with the board. The board is no longer a party of this decision, so you probably have not heard of it. It's a denial of the Surfside Crossing appeal of the appeal that Nantucket Tipping Point and Nantucket Land Council won, the appeal which the town dropped on the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Trust, who went into executive session under an open meeting law violation to recommend dropping that appeal. So it's basically another win at Superior Court on an appeal. So I just wanted to share that with you guys if you'd like a copy of that. And my hope is that when this project does get remanded back to the ZBA, that the select board choose to not undercut or hinder the ZBA in their process and procedure for reviewing this like you did in the past. Just very hopeful that you'll let the ZBA do their job. So would anybody like to see a copy of this decision? My next comment was I had a couple of questions a few weeks ago. I've gone back and forth with Ms. Alger regarding some things that happened at town meeting. I had asked those questions to the select board because I thought it was something that the select board would be able to answer as the executive body. Ms. Alger has kind of gone back and forth and said, yeah, maybe that is a question for the select board. So I was hoping the select board might be able to chime in on those. I'm sure you're all copied or blind copied on that correspondence, just looking for some replies on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts. Erica, which ones are removed? Can you remind me?
We are going to remove the minutes for the Select Board Short-Term Rental Subcommittee. So that would be June 3rd at 6 p.m., June 4th at 6 p.m., and June 6th at 6 p.m.
So except for those minutes?
And for the public to understand, that's for them to review.
Right,
We
right.
aren't removing it so that we don't talk about it or people can't get it. They've already been released. The draft minutes have been released so that everyone can read them, and we're having them reviewed by the committee itself.
Yep, for accuracy.
Yes.
Yep. So those are included, the ones that were ready were included with the next meeting's packets online. So if you go to the agenda page, you can find them there for that group. Okay, so we have minutes and treasury warrants.
Move approval?
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion from Matt, second from Malcolm. Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, next up is citizen and departmental and committee requests. Brian Turbott's online to go over these requests for approval.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think Erica's going to put the AIS up for me. Thank you, Erica. I can't see it now, Erica. Did I lose it?
Do you not see it?
We're not seeing it on,
I don't know why. Let's try again. Now?
yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Erica, very much. So as noted in the AIS to the board, on Tuesday, June 4th, we sold general obligation bond anticipation notes and a grant anticipation note. There was 3 series of bond anticipation notes. The first series was Series A, which we had 4 bidders with Bank of New York Mellon Capital Markets was a low bidder with a net interest cost of 3.6087. Series B, which was the largest of the 3 sales at approximately a little over 31,580,000. That had 7 bidders. with Bank of America Securities, the low bidder, with a net interest cost of 3.3637. And then Series C had 7 bidders, with Bank of America Securities, again being the low bidder, with a net interest cost of 3.6788. Now, the reason that we did do 3 series is because they all have different due dates and timings based on some expectations. The largest one, Series B, we expect may be able to go to permanent financing sometime in February or March, depending on the market conditions. The last series, Series C, is for the airport, for some of their capital projects that they're expecting the grants to come in most likely in the late July to August timeframe. So we took that note a little bit longer just to give them coverage, but that should be extinguished before the due date in October. And then lastly, we did a grant anticipation note, which did finance some prior Capital 90 projects that we're working on finalizing the submissions to the state to get the money reimbursed. That was in the amount of $875,000. There were 2 bidders. Fidelity Capital Market was a low bidder. This had a net interest cost of 6.7%. That is one of the reasons is grant anticipation notes are trending a little bit higher, and it had to be a taxable grant anticipation note due to the size of the issue. So the recommendation from myself would be to recommend the approval of the Series A sale to Bank of New York Mellon Capital, the Series B to Bank of America Securities, and the Series C sale to Bank of America Securities, and the grant anticipation note to Fidelity Capital Markets. And included in the packet were the list of all the bidders with their respective bids and the use of proceeds for the various series.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Any questions from the board? Pleasure.
I'll move approval of the motion on page 39 of our packet,
Dated
dated today,
June 12th.
June 12th.
Thank you.
12. Okay, I have a motion from Matt, second.
Second.
Second from Tom. By roll call, Matt,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Dawn,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay,
I have one
next.
question before we go. This is Brian. Why could you not roll the last interest cost of 6.7 into one of the others, or it's just too different? Is the duration different or the type different?
No, it actually, that's a great question. We did that at, I don't want to say at the very last minute, but that was kind of a sale once we had calculated what the needs were for those prior Chapter 90 projects. So it took a little bit longer. We didn't include it in the issue. It's probably something that we could have done, but it was due to the timing, it made it a little bit more difficult with the use of proceeds for the others and bond counsel review.
I got you. Okay.
Ideally, in the future, should we need another one, we may just do it as a band to make it a little easier.
And it's 870. It's not the, it's not a huge number, but makes sense.
Okay. Next up, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So before you have a request for the approval of a Clean Water Trust interim loan note. Project is CWT 23-07, which is for the Community Septic Management Program. We, at a 2023 meeting, approved a $2 million request to the state for the Community Septic Management Program. We are at the point where we do need to start drawing against that. So we would recommend approval of the Clean Water Trust interim notes in the amount of $2 million, which is administered. This program, as I'm sure you all recall, is administered through the Board of Health for people wishing to update their septic systems. And it is financed through betterments that do get added to their tax bills.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Okay. Do we need any special wording, Erica?
You want any wording?
Move approval based on the vote included in your packet dated June 12th.
As stated.
Okay, all right. So by roll call, Malcolm,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Dawn,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay.
Thank you very
Next
much, Madam
up-
Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Next up is applicant introduction and review for the other half of the boards and committees and folks who were unable to be here last week. So I'm going to let Erica run this for me.
I was thinking maybe we would let anybody from last week who wasn't able to come.
Perfect.
I know Fran Cartoonen is here, so let's start with Fran.
And then Veronica. Okay,
Cemetery Commission.
okay. Yeah, if you could just identify yourself and the thing you've applied for, since we're.
Okay. I'm Frances Kartunen. I'm currently serving as a cemetery commissioner, and I'm up for renewal of another term. I finished Bob Gardner's term, and I've served a couple of terms on my own. And right now, because we received a grant from the Offshore Wind Fund, Commissioner Barbara White and I are very deeply engaged in a one-year project that will finish up about a year from now. And for that reason, I would like to have another term on the Cemetery Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much for applying to stay on.
I believe we also have Veronica Bolchik for Counsel for Human Services.
Good evening.
Just
Veronica
pull the mic up.
Veronica
There we
Bolchik,
go.
22 Arkansas Avenue. I am currently the chair of the Council for Human Services. Been on the council since January of 22 when I filled in a position that became vacant. I feel that my background in not only business and education brings a lot of insight into human services, and our island is a wonderful community that has a lot of needs. I've been involved with the current review of the Council for Human Services and the Contract Review Committee through Reftelis, that we're anxiously awaiting their report for what will come next. So I feel like I'm fully vested, and I would love to continue in this position. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions from the board? Thank
Sue,
you.
is that you back there? Come on, Sue Minton also for the Council for Human Services.
Yep.
Hello, Sue Minton, 10A Old Tom Nevers Road, looking for a second term on the Council for Human Services. I can say everything that Veronica just said, so I won't repeat it all, but it's been a privilege to serve. I'm involved in quite a number of nonprofits and human services on the island, and I feel like I have a good beat on where a lot of the needs are and where the gaps are, so I'd like to just keep doing the work. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Sue. I will like to say too that John Balash called me today. He is for the CRC and he was unable to attend tonight, but he just wanted to express his interest in continuing on that. Is there anyone else from last week? Last week. All right, so now I'm going to go through the list in order. So for the Finance Committee, we have 3 seats available. And that should say 4 applicants. I will fix that for next time. We have Joe Wright, Peter Schaefer, Jeremy Bloomer, and Kathy Richin. Is Joe here? Joe's here. If you want to speak, go ahead, Joe.
Madam Chair, Select Board. My name's Joe Wright. I finished Joe Gauss's term. Now I served 9 months on the Finance Committee. I'd like to work for longer. It was fun and interesting. A democracy requires that there be places where citizens can go that are passionate about something. Joe, can you pull the mic closer? Where citizens can go who are passionate about something and have their interests heard by people in authority. The Finance Committee makes recommendations. It doesn't really make decisions. But I found it a very worthwhile experience, and I hope very much to be able to serve a full term. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Peter?
Hi, Peter Schaefer. Up for my 3rd term. I'd like to be reappointed. I think that, as all of you know, I'm fully vested in the actions of the committee. I'm involved in a lot. I'm also on the Solid Waste Committee and the Nursing Home Committee. And I think that the continuation of those committees with the same people is important. And I would just like to be reappointed. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Jeremy?
I'm Jeremy Bloomer. I live at 15 Gardner Street. I've been on the Finance Committee for the last 2 years and have learned an incredible amount about how our government works. I believe I've added significant value in questioning what I do and working with everybody else. I have been appointed to a number of other committees as well, the Change of Government Committee as the Finance Committee's representative, and also on the Windmill Grant Advisory Committee. I found the work very, very interesting, and I think it builds on my private sector experience, and I would love to be reappointed.
Thank you.
And Kathy?
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Richin, 57 Tom Nevers Road. I had a very long career in the finance department, town of Nantucket, 24 years. The majority of that time, I was the operations coordinator. We had periods of time when we didn't have a finance director, and we managed to get those audits done. So I retired in 2016, and in 2018, I began working for the Community Preservation Committee, doing their financial part. It's very part-time. But since I moved to Nantucket, which was in 1989, I have literally lived in the town government. I've been involved working for the town. Probably some of you have seen me at the elections, signing people in, and at town meetings. I feel as though I have a very clear picture of how the town's finances work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy. Next is the Historic District Commission Associate. There's one seat available and one applicant, Carrie Thornwell, and Carrie is online, so I'm going to allow her to talk. Carrie, you just need to unmute.
Hi, sorry. Hello?
Go ahead, Carrie, we can hear you.
Hi. I appreciate you hearing me. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I've really enjoyed my time on the HDC as an alternate, and I think my colleagues on the board appreciate my input. I like having something that I do for a living be something that I can give back to Nantucket and try to do my best for the HDC board. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay,
Thanks, Carrie.
next up.
Next up is the Affordable Housing Trust. 3 seats available and 6 applicants. Brian Sullivan, the incumbent, Shanta Blois-Murphy, the incumbent, Boyd Bodgis, Kim McMahon, Stephen Welch, and Forrest Bell. But Boyd, why don't you go first?
Hi, hello. My name is Boyd Boggis. I'm a general contractor with Payne Boucher, and I am very interested in the Affordable Housing Trust. I've been doing, as well as universal design and remodeling basically for 35 years. I'm a recent arrival here on the island. I live on Orange Street. And I have some experience with the Board of Appeals down in South Florida, where I lived for about 25 years, and very interested in serving. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Is Kim McMahon here? No. Okay, Stephen Welch. Back.
Good evening, Stephen Welch. Here to let you know that although I think I could make a strong contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I think it's going to have some very important work to do in very short order. I was, shortly after I put in my application, an opportunity came up to contribute otherwise to the community. I was told I can't refuse it, and I'm here to let you know that, one, I'm retracting, well, basically I'm retracting my application. I wanted to come in out of respect to your process and also to the other applicants who had put their names in. So thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
And Forrest Bell.
Good afternoon. My name is Forrest Bell. I live at 9A Benjamin Drive. I am a teacher at the Nantucket New School. I do have to admit it's a bit intimidating. I'm a novice amongst very, esteemed veterans in this process. But the reason I'm applying is because, as some of you know, I am actually a recipient of a Habitat for Humanity home. I've been here for about 20 years. The community of Nantucket's been extremely good to me, and I just felt that I have to do something to give back, and if it could help other Nantucketers secure stable housing, then I just like to do whatever I can to kind of give back. I've been so fortunate. And any questions for me at all? No? Well, that's my piece. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Forrest. Nantucket Historical Commission, 3 seats available and 1 applicant. Angus McLeod, who's the incumbent. I don't see Angus here. Planning Board alternate, 1 seat available and 3 applicants, but I guess we'll make that 2. Because John Kitchener was the incumbent. He's since been appointed as the Planning Board full member. So Liza Hatton and Howard Matz. Liza is here. We're going up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Liza Hatton, and I.
Liza, come close to the mic. I know it's a little
You
awkward.
can adjust it.
Yeah, there we go.
My name's Liza Hatton, and I live at 8 Meeting House Drive. I have lived here year-round since 2011, and I've been coming here during the summer since the 80s. Since I've lived here year-round, I've worked in the hospitality industry, for a general contractor, and in real estate as an administrator and as currently a real estate broker. I've noticed that there aren't a lot of younger residents taking part in our town meetings or town boards and committees. And I was thinking that I have the time to spare, and I think that I might have some perspective that would be worthwhile. So that's it. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and I think Howard's behind me.
Howard?
Oh, sorry, it's too quiet.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Howard Matz, and I have had a really great experience in serving on the CAPCON committee and the Solid Waste Committee, and the Planning Committee is interesting to me specifically because my background is in urban planning, and I have a master's degree in urban planning. So while you thought I was really good at solid waste and have that experience too, the interesting part about this is that there are a lot of issues that are being faced, and some of them are things that I've studied, like particularly I was listening to a couple of meetings, and there's an issue of making sure that we integrate infrastructure work like road work and sewer work and water work and any other kinds of things to be done simultaneously so that we're not digging up roads or redoing things, and we do it with an economy of scale and efficiency. And that's something that I've studied and done a master's report on. And I think that I also heard in some of the meetings there's issues with regard to having not enough water, but enough of an infrastructure to be able to serve the growing demand of the different neighborhoods that are being built. And I think that that needs to be addressed way in advance, because those projects take many, many, many years to get conceived, permitted, preliminary design, and funded. And I just think that that would be of import to us as we continue to grow. And I am quite judicious and not particularly arbitrary. And as I was looking at a lot of the meetings, there are a lot of applications for variances, and I feel real comfortable in being able to look at them objectively and fairly. So it looks like a committee that's kind of right consistent with my background, and it's something else that I would really like to do for the town. So I hope you consider me for the alternate position. Thanks.
Thanks, Howard.
Thanks, Howard. Next is the Real Estate Assessment Committee, 3 seats available and 1 applicant, John Brescher. He is not here. Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, 3 seats available and 3 applicants, Nelson Eldridge, Rob Ranney, and Ed Gillum, all incumbents. I don't think any of them are here. Scholarship Committee, 3 seats available and 0 applicants. Tree Advisory Committee, 2 seats available and 2 applicants. Ben Shampoo, the incumbent, and Emily Molden, new applicant. Emily's in the back.
Hi there. Thank you, Emily Molden. I recognize that this is an uncontested vacant seat, but I'm here anyway. I am currently the executive director of the Nantucket Land and Water Council and also serving on the town's Nantucket and Mattocket Harbors Update Committee, which I've been participating in. In my capacity with the Land and Water Council, I've been pretty involved with the town's tree program from an education and outreach perspective, and also in the initial effort to inventory and map town trees that was started a number of years ago. So I think the town's trees are a valuable and important resource, and I'm just interested in working with the committee to try to complete that inventory, which I know has become an important need, and then also just with planning for the future of the town's tree program. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Em.
Next is the Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 seat available and 1 applicant, John Brescher. And then Zoning Board of Appeals alternate, 1 seat available and 1 applicant, Lisa Botticelli. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, who came this week and last week to review your applications and introduce yourselves, especially the new applicants, to the board so they know who you are and can put a face to the names. The board is scheduled to make its appointments at its June 26th meeting. And so you can come if you want, or you can watch it online, or I'll notify you after the fact. And there are still seats available. We're going to have a round 2, hopefully in July. So those extra seats will be advertised, and I would urge people to apply. They're good committees, especially I'm going to put a little plug in for the scholarship committee. I was on that for a long time. So thanks.
I'll reiterate my thanks to everyone for applying for reappointment and for new applicants. We really appreciate people's willingness to step up and serve in the community. We can't do it without all of you. So thank you. Okay, town manager's report.
So we have one item tonight. It is a review of the board's Healthy Communities focus area. And just to refresh our memory about this, as we have indicated at recent board meetings, we've established teams of staff to assist with implementation of the board strategic plan, with a board member as a liaison to each one of the 5 focus areas. Updates are scheduled throughout the next several months. This is our 3rd update, and tonight's focus area update is our team leaders are Jerica Mealy, our Human Services Director, and Greg Tivnan, Assistant Town Manager. They're going to take us through a little presentation about where we are with this focus area, and the board's liaison, I believe, is Dr. McNabb.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So Jericho and Greg, take it away.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Town manager stole my thunder a little bit with the background, but this is the 3rd update. A little more background. The strategic plan was conceived in roughly 2016, and after a lot of work, adopted in 2018. And each board has been very diligent at updating the plan since 2018. And tonight we discuss the Healthy Environment Community Focus Area, but that was originally called the Quality of Life Focus Area. And at last year's Select Board Strategic Plan Update session in October, the board spoke heavily, discussed this particular focus area a lot, and determined that we needed to bring in more health and community into the quality of life. So even though it just says it in the title of the focus area, the focus has been changed to creating this much more vibrant community that includes economic vitality, as well as a richness for our youth and outreach with DEI. So without ado, Erica, if you could, I also want to point out, I'm a neophyte to all this. I am the interim focus area leader while we do not have a public health director, but I've been very fortunate to be working with the Health and Human Services Director, Jericho Mealy, who has been outstanding with this and kind of has this stuff down pat. So I won't read the select board's aspirational statement verbatim, but in summary, it has been expanded to include a wealth of opportunities to make Nantucket a healthy and vibrant community. Erica, if you could switch the slide, Erica. Here's where I get lost. So we have a DEI, a diversity and equity inclusion statement and goal under a healthy and vibrant community. However, without with the position being vacant right now, the DEI position director being vacant right now, we have not moved forward with it. And there's been discussion at the management level about what's going to happen next in that position. So we really haven't made much progress, but we do want to point out that the work of the previous DEI director has brought forth a strategic plan for DEI, which is our goal, which is our strategy for goal number 1 on our next slide, Erica. And even though it's on hold, there are still elements that are being undertaken by other leaders in the community, such as cabinet members. We have a Juneteenth celebration. We are trying to still engage the community and strengthen our position within the DEI efforts. But until we have a firm grasp of what we plan to do with the vacant DEI director position, we kind of are on hold right now with our strategies for DEI. And town manager, I don't know if you want to add anything. I just don't have that much of a grasp on DEI right now.
Well, not to get into a lot of detail on it, but I think our next step is to develop a request for proposals to seek, I think where we've landed is an RFP to seek professional assistance to kind of do an examination of what's been accomplished so far, what gaps there might be in town government, and possibly revise the program and/or job description accordingly, and then seek applications. So it's taking a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but there are also a lot of other things that have unfortunately gotten in the way of it.
Great. Thank you. As we move on to the next slide, Erica, which is goal number 2, I'll introduce the Director of Health and Human Services, Jericho, to start explaining goals 2 and 3.
Hello, yes. So I took, is this not working?
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is very interesting. Yes, I'm going to be discussing the 3 goals, or rather the 2 goals and the 2 sub-goals that I've been working on for the strategic plan. This initial goal is the expansion of the town's ability to deliver or support programs and services. I have been drinking from the fire hose on this, so to speak, so I may have a lot of jargon and I may talk very quickly. Apologies for that. Briefly, the various stakeholders who I'll be referring to this are listed up there. Basically, they break down into 4 large categories: nonprofit organizations, with some examples there, those who provide services, advocacy, or support, the town of Nantucket staff who administer grants, coordinate between agencies, and do a lot of the sort of scut work, as it were. Then various town bodies, Council on Human Services, Contract Review, various other organizations and town bodies that interact with this, like the Finance Committee. And then finally, island residents, who are those who receive services, advocacy, or support from all of the above. Could we go to the next slide, Erica? So the initial goal, or rather strategy 1, is to evaluate partnership opportunities that promote active and healthy living. The initial plan on this is to take into consideration the ongoing study for Health and Human Services. The department, when I took over the department, it was during COVID, and there were a lot of disruptions in normal services, so it was a good time to begin a evaluation on internal processes, how we set up schedules for meetings, everything sort of stem to stern to try and figure out what the best way to move forward with all that is. We found that collaborative efforts are rather important on that. I worked through the development process of community solutions for behavioral health, which was an outgrowth of the GAP study that was done several years ago as part of the Behavioral Health Initiative. What we're going to try and do initially is improve internal efficiency because a transparent, efficient, and responsive grant process will allow nonprofits to bring us the important services and advocacy that we would need. The primary problem with this, or rather the main challenge for this, is that we have to do all of these evaluations and changes while continuing the grant processes and making sure that the existing services are not impacted. So it's a bit like changing the tires on a bike while you're riding it. Where we're working on right now is we're looking for those partners. We're looking to figure out how internally we will interact with outside partners, and then we're just trying to get a handle on what that means for staffing, for time management, and so on. Does anyone have any questions on this one? No? We can move on to the next one. So this is just where we're at. We're going through the stakeholders to evaluate what services they can provide. Next, we will figure out what those partnerships will look like and exactly how we'll implement them. And then this third point is actually kind of key. One of the central tenets of my approach on the healthy environment community is to build in evaluation periods and iterate them so that we are constantly checking where we are in terms of best practices elsewhere, and so that we can make sure we know where we are on the map as we draw it. I think that's kind of a key part that we need to be focused on, and something that I'm trying to build into to functionalize and formalize for all of the processes I'm working on. We can head to the next one, Erica. The next one is we're going to evaluate partnership opportunities that promote healthy and active living. This is an ongoing process. It has two components. The primary thing that I learned during the COVID era was that we don't have the best outreach into certain groups, people who have more demanding media needs, non-native language speakers, people who don't access the internet with the same frequency as other people. And one of the things I learned during that process is you need to meet people where they are. So what we're going to be looking at is those three demographics, the senior citizens, youth, and then non-majority language speaker. We're going to be identifying nonprofits or individuals or organizations in those areas, and we're going to be trying to partner with them to do and improve our outreach. Malcolm, this is also the category that both the tuberculosis initiative communication on tick-borne illness and tuberculosis that we're going to try and connect. Among the plans there is a visit from a couple of wildlife biologists, an evaluation of some epidemiological data we have on tick-borne illnesses, and then a kind of a plan for a comprehensive tick-borne illness outreach program starting next year. Then the perennial final point is just figuring out who the partners are, like making sure that we have explicit agreements on how relationships will work, and then keeping an eye on how much time and effort and man hours it takes to do all the various subunits. We can advance. So goal 3 is to enhance the town's ability to support local health and human service nonprofit organizations. We can go ahead. So we are currently about to see the output of this strategy. We engaged a consultant to assess the current contract review committee process that then spiraled into a expansion into how Health and Human Services and the Counsel for Human Services operates, the way those interact with each other. We have a process map put together, or a provisional process map put together, so that we'll have an explicit model of how the grant process works, and then we'll be able to improve the transparency and efficiency of that process. Once we receive that report, we'll adapt it so that it is what we need. It'll be informed to the various bodies involved, and then we'll try and implement that process for the fiscal year 26 grant cycle. This is actually a fairly large one because of the central nature of the town's nonprofits, so the central relation of the town's grants to nonprofits delivering locally provided services to the people who live here. A more transparent, efficient, and effective grant process is only going to improve services for residents on the island. Next, sorry. And then on this one, the bidding process has been sorted out. We've awarded the contract. We should be receiving and starting to dig through the assessment, I believe at the end of July. And then finally, the big part of how I think we need to approach the healthy and vibrant community goal here is to determine what we need. We need to figure out metrics to measure. We need to figure out how to assess data over time. We need to figure out what we need and how we need it. I have seen firsthand the value of these needs assessments. We did a behavioral health needs assessment I referred to earlier, which became the common language that all of the nonprofits and all of the various agencies are using to discuss behavioral health issues. A community-wide needs assessment is a fairly large task, so I've I've communicated with a couple of people to sort of set the scope on this process. And then another key component to that is to try and build in a periodic reassessment, maybe not a full needs assessment, but some sort of phased different sector-based needs assessment. And then that is sort of where we will be able to set our benchmarks so that we can see if our efforts in service delivery are changing the fundamentals. Essentially, in the first section of this strategic goal, I wanted to focus internally on our own processes and how we interact with other agencies, and then we would start working for larger, bigger swings, as it were. I think there's one more. Nope, that's it. So that was a lot. Does anyone have any questions or any concerns?
I have a comment, but I'll, anybody else have anything to ask? I'm fully aware that needs are growing in the community, and our financial commitment to these types of services may need to grow over time. So, and I also believe that research and data analytics in terms of the needs assessment will be critical to allocating those funds, and transparent processes. And I'm delighted that that is underway. And I think that our comfort level at the board level to supporting or encouraging increased funding in the budget for human services is really dependent on our confidence in the decision-making and the allocation of those funds, and making sure they're actually meeting the needs of the community in a more organized fashion. And I'm really hoping, as the former chair of the Council for Human Services, which is by definition intended to establish policy and priorities for your department's initiatives and for that fund, the use of those funds, then I'm very much looking forward to empowering that group to have the information they need to make the recommendations that that committee is designed to do. So I'm thrilled that this process is underway and looking forward to the outcome.
So that's actually, that specific point, I think, is part of the Raftalis study. And then I know that we're having the agenda item for this week's meeting is discussing the mission statement and how that interacts with the contract review committee. The separation between bid evaluation, as it were, and policy is one that I think I've seen in a lot of the other communities that I've looked at. We specifically have been using Greenwich, Connecticut as a model for a couple of these because there are similar demographics in a few ways, including overall scope. And then that sort of separation of policy and procedure has been one that has been showing up in a lot of different areas. So that is something I'm looking forward to as well.
And my final comment is, welcome to your real job.
Thank you.
After 2 years of doing another job altogether. So thank you.
It only took 4 years. So thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to reiterate and thank Jericho for all the work he's done on this. He's really taken a leadership role in the focus area, and I'd be completely lost without him. I also want to point out that Janet Schulte has been very instrumental in helping to keep all the focus areas on task, and to remind you guys and the public that the select board will be reviewing the strategic plan at their annual strategic plan update meeting in October. So it's not static, it's very living and breathing, and it'll evolve as the island and the boards evolves. But thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Janet. Tom?
Yes, Madam Chair. Jericho, thank you for your work on this, and Chair Balchuk for the council for all your work on this. I just want to quickly comment that I was interviewed by Ref Tallis, and they spent quite a bit of time with me, and they asked a lot of very good questions from my perspective as a select board member on about a year, and also that I work in the human services space. So I thought it was really good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everybody for that. Next up, select board reports and comments. Acknowledgement of the receipt of 3 open meeting law complaints. Libby, who's going to?
Janelle Austin from Town Council's office is going to take us through this item.
Hi, Janelle, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here tonight to review 3 open meeting law complaints that were filed dated May 2nd, 2024, related to the Offshore Wind Working Group. I believe a copy of those 3 open meeting law complaints that are referenced on the meeting notice for this evening have been distributed to all of the board members. I'm certainly here to walk through the process of reviewing those complaints. A draft response has been provided as well to the board in consultation with CHP, the energy coordinator, and the preservation planner with respect to the underlying facts and legal analysis with respect to that working group, and specifically the meeting that's at issue, which was a May 1st, 2024 meeting that was held in consultation with Cultural Heritage Partners, CHP, to provide information to town staff as well as to various individuals with respect to offshore wind programs. Essentially, by way of background for the board, on May 1st, it's my understanding from town personnel and CHP that there was an information session that was hosted by CHP. There were no votes taken, no decisions made, no quorum requirements specifically, essentially no formal directive. As a result of the individual complainants' inability to access that meeting, these 3 open meeting law complaints were filed. Attendance at this meeting, I'm informed, was completely voluntary. There was no, as I mentioned, quorum requirement. And essentially, any information that was provided was information that was also otherwise made publicly available. And as you all know, information through CHP, since they became involved with offshore wind legal advice as special counsel to the town in 2019, there have been periodic updates that CHP has provided, as well as the preservation planner and the energy coordinator in recent years. We have provided a summary of those public sessions or public meetings in which offshore wind matters were, updates were provided to members of the public in the draft response. Essentially tonight, we're looking for the board's review of the complaints at issue, a discussion of the draft response subject to any changes or comments that the board may have, and certainly a motion to approve subject to any changes the draft response. I'm certainly here and available to answer any specific questions. Given the open meeting law considerations, you'll note at the end of the draft, there is language to, given CHP's involvement since 2019, some language essentially to dissolve the working group in its current formation or iteration, subject to further review and consultation with CHP, the town manager's office, certainly the board, as well as the energy coordinator and the preservation planner. Certainly here to answer any questions with respect to the draft response or incorporate any changes that any members of the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Any questions from the board?
I have sort of a question, maybe a comment. I agree with what she has presented. I think it makes sense looking at it. I wonder about going forward, and sort of for the public, basically, it's similar to Libby having a staff meeting. She doesn't have to let, everybody into the staff meeting. It's a staff meeting. They aren't voting policy. They aren't, the WIN group wasn't voting policy. They weren't making those decisions. So I think that's sort of for the public to understand that's what it was. I think I wish I had sort of, I think I was in attendance in the last meeting that we've had the issue, and people tried to get into the meeting, and I wish we had given a better explanation at the time of what it was and why. And now that I know that, I would feel, maybe this wouldn't even have happened, but I didn't have that knowledge myself, and we didn't do that at the time. That was number two. And the question I have is, going forward, if we're going to dissolve this group, going forward, how do we operate? How do you bring people together to do, internally deal with some of these issues because they're complicated and need a lot of horsepower? So how do you do that?
I think between me and other staff people, we just pull them together.
Was that you?
Me and other staff people identify who might have expertise out in the community and just pull them together, bring them in, talk to them, get information, and if there's a policy decision that needs to be made, we bring it back here.
Gotcha. So it just, going forward, we won't have a quote-unquote WIN work group that with people that have come and gone,
I think going forward, the idea is, it also was a dynamic group, membership changed, and I think going forward, it might still be kind of like that, but it won't be appointed by the board, which I think, Janelle, correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of the key issue here. It's more, it's pulled together. I'm not even going to say it's appointed really, but established through town administration. And we can certainly consult with any of you as to if you think a certain member of the community might have the expertise needed to weigh in on something. We're happy to take advantage of that.
Okay, that makes sense. That's good.
Okay. So any suggested edits or a motion to authorize town council to submit the response as written?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so by roll call, Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay.
And the only other comment I would like to make before we leave this topic is, I think the staff, at least myself, I'll speak for myself, and I believe the staff, I think we know we need to do a little better job of outreach than we have, and, we're going to do that. We listen to town meeting, we understand with a million other things, this is important, and when we have decision points and we have things that need to be relayed, we will do that. So, thank you.
Okay, next up. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. Moving on to the short-term rental subcommittee update, Select Board Short-Term Rental Subcommittee update. Tom?
Well, I think it's pretty much, Madam Chair, what I said last week. We've been plowing through. We have 4 meetings. Malcolm and myself have been there. And like I said last week, the parties have come to the table to try and come to some form of consensus on a zoning piece and also possibly a general bylaw. We'll see. I think we're going to, tomorrow night is our 5th scheduled meeting. We have 2 placeholders for next week, and we'll see how far we get through tomorrow. But I remain hopeful that there'll be a consensus article that can come to us and we can discuss at some point. I remain heartened that all 3 of the citizen article proposers continue to drill down on certain provisions and really talk it out. And it's been on the Zoom, there's been lots of people on there watching, and I think I've heard that lots of people are watching on YouTube as well, and so that's good to hear. But I think there'll be, whatever comes out of this group, there'll be a lot of work to put it out there and to describe it and make sure that people are well aware of what provisions are in a potential final warrant article for September 17th, which, as I noted last night at the end of our meeting, we have the school for one night. And so all those articles, as I'm sure we'll get to at some point for the special in the review, that we have to finish that night. And I would also ask my colleague if he has anything to add.
No, I think I saw last night the first real movement of people a little bit off their positions. So as a natural skeptic, I'm a little optimistic.
That is nice to hear. Matt, you want to say anything?
Him being optimistic has me worried. But no, what I will say, I think that one thing I've noticed is people have been sending letters to us as a board, or to your group, or to Erica. Those have all been put into the minutes for these various meetings. And I've watched on Zoom the meetings. I'm not participating, but I'm watching. And I have noted that some of the concerns that are addressed via email have come up during your meetings. So I feel like that has been, a good way to gain the input without having to hear the same thing 100 times that night and derail you. So I give you credit for asking for things in writing and for actually, taking that on board. That has been a positive that I have noted.
So I'd like to just ask Tom and Malcolm, when is the opportunity for public comment? You want to be open in these meetings? Because they have not accepted public comment in the interest of keeping the dialogue between the proponents going and the process of collaboration and compromise. And so
I was actually making notes on this before the meeting, and Malcolm, I think that's something that we need to talk about probably tomorrow. So on the agenda tomorrow is public comment at the end of the meeting. However, the meeting is 6 to 8, 2 hours tomorrow. And I think there is going to be a rough draft with some numbers to put in, et cetera, at tomorrow's meeting that we will go through. I don't know if that's going to be fully fleshed out. And we still also have to cover the general bylaw provisions. So I think Malcolm and I need to talk. We'll talk tomorrow. Yeah, we need to talk tomorrow.
It depends how much time is taken on the rough draft that is now available.
Okay, so I just wanted to manage the community's expectations because I knew public comment was on that agenda for tomorrow night, but it is at the discretion of the chair as to whether public comment will be taken. Am I correct? Yep. And that there will be opportunities for public comment. And I also want to remind the community the timeline on this is very, very, very tight. And so we do not have a meeting, this board does not have a meeting next week, and we are scheduled to adopt the warrant the following week. So we recognize going into this, when we scheduled this special town meeting, that this timeline would be extremely tight. Our goal in setting up this subcommittee was really with great hope that the three proponents would come together and offer us a compromise article that the select board could sponsor as another article and put into the warrant, and that the proponents would then commit to supporting that article. And then we would have further discussion and education of the community between when we adopt the warrant and special town meeting in September, with a lot of opportunity for input and feedback and so forth. So we're hopeful, and we recognize that, that the timeline has been tight on this. So I am not going to take any public comment on this, consistent with the strategy we've had so far. And we'll see how it goes tomorrow. And then I'm assuming those placeholder meetings for next week will happen. And that may be the opportunity for the community to comment publicly on the draft proposal. So having said that.
One of my hopes is that, sort of the last hour of when the group gets to something, I hope that there's a vetting process and that you are able to drill into and sort of question things and drill into it, because I think that's part of why we had the issue that we had this past spring, is there was one issue that came from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, not from the short-term rental work group. There was an issue that I asked a question of the work group members, and I got 3 different answers. So then we had the work group members who had resigned, but we had them here anyway, and they, sort of, we worked through it at this level, but that kind of undid us at the next level. So I hope, and I did hear, watching it, I did hear that it felt like there was a little bit misunderstanding on a couple issues the other night. I think it was around pre-existing and what people thought would be pre-existing, and 2 or 3 different people had 2 or 3 different versions. So I hope that there's a proper vetting so that that's all kind of figured out and everyone's on the same page, so that we don't have to amend it here, too much if at all, and that it doesn't get amended to death at town meeting, because if it does, it'll get more confusing, and then people will vote against it just because they vote, they can't understand it and it changed too much. So that's my advice, sort of having learned the hard way. So,
Madam Chair. Yeah, that's a very good, those are all very good points, Matt. I think that some of the, I wouldn't say confusion, but some of the back and forth on comments around specific provisions last night were things like the definition of a cottage colony and how would, not timeshares, but things like them kind of fit into all this. And Town Council did give us a bunch of good recommendations on that. And I think that I think Malcolm has made it very clear in our meetings that simplicity is the key. And I think all 3 groups have really kind of taken that to heart. And there was some kind of boiling down of, well, if you did that, then you wouldn't need, so there's like 13, there's a list of 13. And if you did 6 and 7, you wouldn't need 8 and 9 or whatever. So that's been hardening. But I agree with you, Matt, that what needs to come out of this group is not something that we need to heavily amend, or FinCom needs to heavily amend, or et cetera.
Yeah, and I think my other comment would be that there are really important, fundamental, major pieces of this discussion, and then there are smaller pieces that seek to address some of the negative consequences that run against the general principles of what's trying to be done. And I just want to say, this can't be done simply. It is a complex issue. And so the idea that we can distill it down into something super simple is just not realistic for it to be effective in the ways that bringing the different people with different perspectives and different desires ends up. So, however, there have been areas of the conversation, as I've observed it, where a specific piece has been, spent a lot of time, and there's been discussion of, well, we can hold that for later, or for a revision down the road. Let's not overcomplicate this version and overwhelm the public. So that has definitely been part of the dialogue. So, and again, I will reiterate the comment I made last week. I encourage the public to go back and watch this process happening, because understanding the outcome or being comfortable with the outcome will be largely dependent on knowing how the outcome was arrived at and the process by which it was arrived at. Compromise is a hard thing to understand unless you're watching it happening in real time. So thanks for all the work for everyone who's participated. Anything else from the board?
Agreed, Madam Chair.
Yeah, one other comment. One thing that's I've been interested in watching is sort of the idea of expanding the definition of hosted stay. It wouldn't be called hosted stay, but expanding that to encompass sort of if someone is living on a property, then and you guys have started out without even talking about that, and now that's turning into something that I think may end up being an integral part of, sort of not being not going against the Commerce Clause, but also, giving people, a break if they're renting for a 12-month rental, for example. And then someone's living in one house for 12 months, the other one is short-term rented a lot. By definition, it's still accessory. And so I think that, and that's litigated and, sort of actual. And so I think that watching that happen over time, and you guys come around to some version of that, I thought was heartening, because it started out sort of not on the, it's a little bit on the radar of one group, but now it's kind of bubbling up and becoming on the radar of all three because it solves some of the other issues. So I think that was encouraging to me. That's an example of one that I think is, it's working. So I have my fingers crossed.
Thanks again for everyone's participation in that process. Okay. Next up is the Select Board Committee representative appointments for the coming year.
I'm going to share my screen real quick.
So we do have the same board.
So we have, for ad hoc budget work group, the chair and vice chair, so that's going to be Brooke and Matt. Audit committee is the chair plus one other person, so it would be great if one other person would step up for that. Board of Health is Malcolm, or he would like to be. Cannabis Advisory Committee, we need one rep. Capital Program, Dawn. Coastal Resiliency, Matt. CPC and Affordable Housing Trusts, Tom. The Offshore Wind Work Group is Matt and Malcolm.
But it's being disbanded?
But it's being disbanded, but it's on here. Okay. Parking Benefits District Commission, if that ever becomes active, is Tom. PEG is Malcolm. Pulpus Harbor is Matt. And the MPDC you will do on the 26th under county. So is anyone interested in serving on the Audit Committee or the Cannabis Advisory Committee?
I'll do audit if someone else doesn't want it.
I can do audit.
You got to duke it out between the two of you.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's, you can do cannabis.
I don't do
If nobody wants to do cannabis, I'll stay on that.
On which one? Cannabis?
I'll stay on cannabis if no one else wants to do it.
Okay, so Malcolm for audit, Dawn for cannabis.
Okay,
Is that good?
it works.
Okay.
The only thing I noted is, do you want to add Washington Street Work Group on that?
I
Just
could, yeah.
to make note that Matt and I also serve on that.
Hold on, let me, audit is Malcolm.
Anything else we're missing that we're all doing?
Cannabis is Dawn.
I don't think our island home was on there.
Okay.
Oh, and we had a couple other like little internal groups too, the solid waste long-term planning.
Those are internal.
Town manager,
I don't know why they're on here then.
yeah.
Yeah, they should just be removed.
Okay.
Tom?
Madam Chair, Town Council Study Committee, I am the primary, Malcolm's the alternate for that.
For what?
Town Council Study Committee.
Okay, do you want that on here too?
I'm just throwing it out that that's one of our assignments.
Yep. Who is Affordable Housing Trust again?
Tom?
Town Council.
Okay, everybody happy?
Hold on. Town Council Study Committee is Tom and Malcolm? Yeah.
We added today, actually.
I need to go.
And the Washington Street, what is that thing called?
It's the Washington Street Work Group.
Okay. And who is that?
Washington Street Resiliency
and
Work
Brooke?
Group, Matt and I. And just for the public, that's a joint with the Land Bank for long-term planning for Washington Street coastal resilience.
Thank you. Great.
Okay. You good, Erica?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Review of citizen warrant articles for the special town meeting. Libby, was town council going to come tonight, or?
Well, I apparently had a miscommunication about that because I
Okay.
thought he was, but he didn't think that. So he's not coming. So I guess the idea was not really to have lengthy discussion about any of them, but just to note sort of what they are. So as you can see, there's a number of short-term rental related articles.
Erica, can you put up the list, please?
So just to quickly go through these, A and B are under review with the subcommittee. C and L and N, we need to get, I don't know if we've done this yet, we need to get those to the little internal work group and schedule a public hearing. I totally forgot about that, but that needs to happen in advance of the FinCom motions. D, E, F, G are all being discussed more or less at the subcommittee meeting. H, I'm not quite sure of the purpose of that because that does not require a town meeting vote, but now it's on the warrant. I will be zoning bylaw about demolition. That has been forwarded to planning. The home rule petition, it's just, a citizen home rule petition about planning commission. K, that was J. K, zoning, forwarded to planning. M and O, zoning, forwarded to planning. And these are all online. People can read them, look at them. The planning board will have public hearings on all of the zoning articles, including the short-term rental ones. And think you all are scheduled to adopt the warrant on June 26th. So I'm in the process of starting to put that together and determine if there are any other non-citizen articles, of which I have maybe 2 or 3.
I have a thought on I, on the zoning bylaw demolition. Should that go to HDC or Historical Commission as well? I know it's a zoning, but it's also, it does have a lot to do with the things that we were talking about last week.
I'm sure it wouldn't hurt for them to comment on it.
Yeah.
We could forward it to them.
I would like to have them involved.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Any committee reports? It's been a quiet week.
I did
not really.
Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust, did they meet on the lease to locals? Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, we had a presentation from Placemate, and the board had a bunch of questions, and we held it over to I forget if it's our next meeting or the meeting after, but that is proceeding. Okay. That there was in the packet that's on the website is a PowerPoint on that with a bunch of specifics from the questions from last time, and then we're going to roll that into a further discussion next time.
Yeah, what type of metrics will Affordable Housing Trust Fund use to evaluate? Did you guys discuss any of that?
This was more about how, at least the locals through the Act Now community initiatives, I think it is, they've done it so far. Right. So a lot of the questions that we had as the trust was, how would this be affected with such things as fair housing laws? How would this change if it were public money? What would the caps be? What AMI level? Things like that. So I think it's more of at the moment more of a fact-finding mission, and then we'll kind of get into more structure, if you will, after that.
Right, because I'll give you sort of my thought on it. I was thinking about it, and it seems, sort of, is it worth doing? Because that's sort of the first thing, and how do you know? I think the good thing is that it's putting people in beds relatively quickly, and at a relatively low price. But I that's what I think. But I don't know. So I was thinking, how would I determine that. And so you'd say, okay, how much is it per year, per person, et cetera? What do you compare it to? Do you compare it to Tacoma Green? And how do you break that up? Do you compare it to, across the street, Wiggles Way? How do you break it up? I think there is a way to do that because, those get after about 30 years, those are all first off, we've given all the land on a lot of it. Plus there's an amount that we subsidize. And then we could break that over 30 years and you take the land out, or you take half the land and you take a percentage of the other, and you would have a yearly cost per person or per dwelling that you could compare to this. And I think there's a way to do a metric that would tell you, is it efficient or is it way off? Is it cheap? Is it about right? Is it too much? I think there's something like that would be very helpful. The other thing I thought about I've been thinking about is, I think there's a groundswell building in the community and people want to help. I think if it was, if you guys considered it, the town funding it for a year or two, or part of it, or a match, or something like that, so the money goes further, I think that there might be, people can donate to Housing Nantucket and get a tax deduction. I think there might be some interest if you guys were putting up X amount, if the Affordable Housing Trust Fund put up something and it was matched and they pay more, if people matched more, we might even do better. And in 3 or 4 years, it might be, sort of self-perpetuating, so there's things like that. Or in 3 or 4 years, we built our own buildings, or 10 years, we built our own buildings and we need it less and it goes away. But I was just sort of been trying to, in my head, think, it seems to be, I also think where we're heading time-wise, is I think that we're heading into a period where, there's a lot of competition for short-term rentals and for that type of thing. I think there's going to be some properties that have had trouble the last couple of years, and some of those might be available and the timing might be good with the interest rate hikes and everything else for some of those to remain if there's a way to help them remain. So I hope that you guys are looking, I know you're looking at some of that.
Matt, it's funny you say that because every single one of the points you made in one way or another came up yesterday from members of the trust. And so I know that Placemate is going to work on some general scenarios on how they might better apply to Nantucket with Christie's office, et cetera. So I think there'll be a expanded, revised and extended slide deck with some more specifics that maybe we can invite Christie here to talk to us at some point as well.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Dawn?
Yep, I just wanted to quickly mention that I think on Article J, the NP and EDC would probably want to say something because they've been working pretty diligently on a potential proposal for the spring for a change in makeup. And I'm sure that they're aware, but it should probably just be sent to them in case they want to comment. NP and EDC.
Oh, send it to the NP and EDC. I gotcha.
Sorry if you couldn't hear all of that.
No, that's okay. I just was not following the thread. Okay, that's a great idea, and see how it meshes with the work they're doing. Okay, great. Anything else? If not, a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
Okay, by roll call, Matt?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Have a nice evening, everybody.